This is so relaxing. Just me in my empty classroom in this little box on the bottom of this page. Not a care in the world. But that's not life, is it? No, in life we've got stuff. And sometimes that stuff gets crowded. We've got places like garages. This is not actually my garage. We have notes. We have things that get packed into small places, and that doesn't work well for us, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. Today, guys, we are talking about spacing and organization in our notes. All right, this is Easy Notes Topic 3, and you get it. Sometimes our spacing and organization need a little help. Sometimes they need a little bit of professional help. Let's get that taken care of in terms of your notes and see if we can't make you a more successful student. From a spacing perspective, we can see that a lot of information is packed into the page. That's a problem because our brain doesn't like that, okay? Our brain likes to be at a relaxed sense of peace, and it always craves that, and it always tries to go back to that. And when it encounters something that is a crowd of information or anything else in a small space, it starts to reject that, all right? So when we go back to take a look at our notes, these notes aren't as useful as they could be, because when it's time to study, they're a little overwhelming, like, oh, that's a lot, right? My brain doesn't do so well with that. What's a possible solution? Well, one possible solution is to think about your notes as if they were a speech cue card, right? If this were a cue card for a speech, would it be an effective one? This is straight from those notes. No, it wouldn't be that effective because there's so much crowded on the page that when I'm trying to give that speech, I can't look at all those tiny details, look at the audience, deal with my nervousness and when I'm giving a speech. I wouldn't make a cue card that way. I would make a cue card that looks like this. Topic with some brief info, subtopic, a bullet point or two with details and examples, and I'd leave a lot of empty space and I'd make it easy to see. I'm trying to make that nice for my brain when I'm giving a speech. And the same thing should be true for your notes. How would you make a speech cue card? Make your notes in a similar manner. If I did that, they might look like this on the page, right? Here's some of those notes that we've seen before and some of the other examples, and they're neat, they're clear. I've got a lot of empty space on the page that my brain likes. So when I go back to study, I can find things. When it comes to organization and how specifically we put those notes on the page, there are a few things that we can learn from specific note-taking methods. Now, Easy Notes is not a specific note-taking method. We typically look at the characteristics of good notes and try to learn from those, and you can apply those to what you're doing. But in this case, let's take a look at traditional outline notes and Cornell notes and see what we can learn and apply to our own notes. In the traditional format for outline notes, we have something that looks a whole lot like that speech note card that you saw before, except you've got some letters and numbers on there, right? The key feature, probably the most important feature, is not those letters and numbers for most people. It's the use of logical indentation. Logical indentation means that we have a hierarchy of not importance, but of broad to specific. All right, so above, we've got the more broad topics, right? Subtopics below, and then our specific examples or our terms and definitions below, but we indent, and that tells our brain that there's a specific relationship between this and the thing that comes before it. If we just write our notes like they're in like a tube going down the page or across the page, like we saw in some of those other examples, that logic isn't spelled out for our brain spatially, so our organization doesn't help us that much. All right, so a lot of people do this without the letters and numbers, right? That we use logical indentation, but we substitute letters and numbers for bullet points. Got to say that's pretty okay too. Cornell notes or split page notes or two-column notes, are basically like this. It's a different type of organization on the page. Absolutely acceptable. Can be a very positive thing for a lot of students, where you put two lines on the page crisscrossing each other, and then you put your terms, your main ideas on one side, maybe your questions on one side, and your answers, your definitions, and so on the other side. Now you can see here that there's still logical indentation. And with this method, we are also using organization to help our brains. Notice there's still a lot of clear space on the page. We're not crowding things in, and we can modify this for a variety of classes. We've got terms and examples here. We've got questions and answers on a split page format, and the notes look spread out enough and neat enough on the page that we can go back and we can use them. Finally, let me give you some review of the spacing tips for spacing in your notes. Do not crowd words on the line or lines on the page. Allow for a lot of empty space. When it comes to organization, indent logically with topics, subtopics, supporting details and examples. Your options here are using numbers and letters, bullet points, or dividing lines. And all of these things will help you become a more effective note taker and a more successful student. Thanks for joining me today, guys. I hope that was helpful. If it is and you want to subscribe, you can, and that way you'll know when the next video comes out. Take care.